What do you think the most crucial creature on Earth is? A couple of years ago, I would have thought that these are the bees, because bees go around, pollinate flowers, create food for animals and for humans alike. But I was wrong. Other people would think that other people are the most crucial creature on Earth because we kind of need each other to reproduce and create little babies. But I would invite you to think of something more crucial, more imminent than reproduction or food. And that is, take a deep breath. Yes, that is oxygen, that is breathable air. Without that, most mammals, and definitely all humans, would die only within minutes. So me, empowered with this knowledge 2 years ago, would have thought that, okay, trees are the most crucial creature on Earth. But it turns out that trees only have a good PR and marketing strategy. In reality, they are not that crucial. We are just being told all the time to plant more trees, donate $1, so we plant a tree. So it makes us think that they are so extremely crucial. But it turns out that they produce only 20 to 30% of the Earth's oxygen. So where is the rest of the oxygen come from? This comes from a creature that is inside this water bottle. Can you see it? No, I cannot see it, even though it's very close to me. And the reason why is that this creature is so microscopic that it is invisible to the naked eye. In fact, it represents less than 1% of the Earth's biomass, but it produces over 50% of the Earth's oxygen. It is so microscopic that obviously we cannot see it with the naked eye, and 200 years ago, we didn't even know it existed. I didn't know it existed only 2 years ago. And this creature, drum rolls, is the phytoplankton, which I see some people nodding their head. That's impressive. I didn't know what phytoplankton was 2 years ago. I kind of knew that plankton is a kind of algae, but phytoplankton, I had no clue. So let me introduce you to phytoplankton. It is a tiny microscopic plant that lives in water bodies everywhere on Earth. It lives in the icy waters around Antarctica. It lives in the Niagara Falls. It even lives in raindrops. If you went down here to Lady Bird Lake and took a spoon of water, there would be thousands, if not millions, of phytoplankton in it. Phytoplankton is not only one of the most crucial creatures on Earth, but it is also one of the most abundant. This is how many phytoplankton are alive as of right now. Google tells me that this number is called nonillion. Phytoplankton, probably for many of you, this is the first time that you hear about it. I heard about it for the first time 2 years ago. But actually, there is one phytoplankton that I would guess most of you have heard about, and most of you know. Because this phytoplankton starred with Leonardo DiCaprio in the movie The Beach in the early 2000s. And here in this movie, Leo, with his love interest, is swimming in the beautiful waters, and you can see all these little particles, and that is actually a type of phytoplankton that glows when it is being disturbed. So you can see that is all phytoplankton over there. So phytoplankton is the most crucial creature on Earth. It is the most abundant creature on Earth, and it is a celebrity. It impacts several of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. These are 17 goals that were developed, I think, in 2015. And this is basically what the UN thinks that we should all aspire for. These include no poverty, zero hunger, etc., etc. Phytoplankton impacts 4 of these 17 goals directly. And let me quickly walk you through, just to prove my point, how important phytoplankton is. Number 1, clean water and sanitation. Now, phytoplankton is very helpful when it produces oxygen, but I wouldn't recommend you to actually drink it. And then obviously there are water treatment plants that treat water so we can consume it safely. The second thing is good health and well-being. This is a picture, again, a couple of kilometers from here. This is Austin, and I think this is part of Lady Bird Lake. I don't know Austin that much. And you can see all these things floating on the top of the water. This is something that is called a harmful algal bloom, and this is created by phytoplankton. Not only does it look disgusting, but it is also very dangerous, particularly for dogs. I think almost every summer a dog dies in Austin because of this. This good boy was called Oliver, and I think he passed away 1 year ago. He just went into the water, and within 1 hour, unfortunately, the dog passed because of phytoplankton. The third important United Nations Sustainable Development Goal that phytoplankton directly impacts is life below water. Phytoplankton forms the basis of the aquatic food chain. It means that without phytoplankton, every single animal in the ocean would starve to death very quickly. And interestingly, phytoplankton is one of the smallest plants on Earth, and it feeds one of the biggest animals on Earth, which is the whale. And finally, very important for climate change, phytoplankton directly supports climate action. How? Well, all these dangerous gases released by factories and cars are captured by phytoplankton and sunk to the bottom of the oceans. And this is how it looks like. It looks like snow, but it is actually at the bottom of the ocean, and this is called as marine snow. This is basically a dangerous gas captured by phytoplankton and sunk to the bottom of the ocean. So all this to say that phytoplankton is crucial. I hope I proved that this is one of the most crucial creatures on Earth. But let me talk a little bit about new developments, especially when it comes to technology regarding phytoplankton. As you remember, it is invisible. How did we learn 200 years ago, 150 years ago, that phytoplankton even exists? Well, they have a funny quality, and that is that they are a little bit cannibalistic. They like to eat themselves, and one of the reasons why they are pooling at the same location to eat each other, as well as for other reasons. And there are different types of phytoplankton. There are greener types of phytoplankton, and there are browner types of phytoplankton. And in large concentration, not only do they change the color in laboratory settings, but also they can change the color of entire oceans. So 150 years ago, a Swiss scientist came up with an early technology that looks something like this. You put it on the top of the water, and basically seeing what is the color of the water, you categorize the water color. It might look like a simple technology, but 150 years ago, this was revolutionary. The gentleman is called Forel, and he was a Swiss scientist, in case you are interested in learning more. The crazy thing is that 60 years after this technology, we sent the first human to space. For me, it is mind-blowing that we went from this to the first human, Yuri Gagarin, to space only in 60 years. So when the first astronauts went to space, they looked back on Earth, and they saw that Earth is blue, which wasn't too shocking because 2/3 of Earth is basically covered in water, so it was kind of expected. But when they took a closer look, they realized that Earth's waters are not always blue. There are these weird formations on top of the waters. This is an image of northeast USA, that's Boston, Cape Cod, Nova Scotia, and obviously Austin is down there, down to the south. And you can see these weird formations on top of the water. They kind of look like Van Gogh painting, but obviously they are not. They are a painting of nature. And these is obviously phytoplankton formations. Some of these can be bigger than the entire United States. And when you see it from space, they are clearly huge. Like Boston is a tiny dot over here, and just this formation is almost as big as Massachusetts, if not bigger. So we realized that we can see this invisible creature from space, which is kind of crazy. And so last year, NASA put into orbit a satellite specifically dedicated to phytoplankton. This satellite is called the PACE satellite, where the P, what do you think it stands for? Drum roll, it stands for plankton or phytoplankton. So why did phytoplankton need its own satellite? Well, for two reasons. Number one is some parts of the ocean are incredibly hard to monitor. For instance, Point Nemo is one of the most remote spots on Earth. It takes about 1 week for a scientist to get there from New Zealand or from Chile. It is so far from everything, so obviously sending out scientists there to take samples of waters to be able to analyze phytoplankton is unsustainable. It is very hard to convince scientists to do that. Also, at some points, the astronauts in the International Space Station are actually closer to Point Nemo than the people in Chile and in New Zealand. I see some surprised faces, but this is actually true. So it's kind of crazy to think about that Point Nemo is closer to people floating in space than people in the nearest dry lands. So this is reason number one why phytoplankton needed its own satellite. It can be in very, very remote locations. Reason number two is that us little humans are kind of blind little creatures floating through space. And let me explain that. What you see in front of you is a keyhole, and that is kind of the amount of reality that we can perceive. So if you think about it, what percentage of color do you think we can process with our eyes and with our brain? 80%, 20%, 5%? Some people are signaling even less than that, and they are right. It is about 0.0035% of the color that we can see with our eyes and process with our brains, which is crazy. That's why I am saying that we are blind little creatures on this planet that we named Earth, just like floating through the universe. For me, it's shocking that we are even surviving. So let me introduce you to color theory. This is what you see is what we call the visible light, and this is what humans can see. And me, without makeup, in a hoodie, this is how I look like with these colors. You will understand why I am choosing that image. I wasn't expecting to take a selfie at that moment. To the left of it, it is something called infrared, and mosquitoes see this specific color, and a mosquito would see me like this, which makes sense because mosquitoes, my skin is the primary food source of mosquitoes, so obviously evolution made them see warm blood. That's why mosquitoes see me like this. On the other end of the spectrum is called ultraviolet. Birds see in ultraviolet, and the way a bird would see me, get ready, this is going to be a scary image, it's something like this. I am smiling, I look super scary, I don't know what is the evolutionary point that a bird see me like this. I imagine I might be a predator for them, but I don't know, I digress. So this is still a very, very tiny amount of all the light that is out there, but the point about this satellite, this NASA satellite, is that it captures this entire spectrum. So ultraviolet, the visible light that we humans can see, and infrared. And why is it important for phytoplankton when we know that they tend to be green or brown? It is because with this satellite, we can see the invisible. So what you see in front of you is kind of how an astronaut would see the eastern United States from space. But with this PACE satellite, we are able to see a lot more by leveraging this wider color that we can capture. And this is how it looks like with the PACE satellite. Great. So why is it important? The reason why is that where we see a green color, that's one specific phytoplankton that thrives in colder waters, and when we see the pink color, that's another type of phytoplankton that thrives in warmer waters. And again, why is it important? Well, the colder one is more important for life below water, and then the phytoplankton that likes the warmer waters is more important for climate action. So obviously, understanding what phytoplankton thrives where around the globe is extremely important in achieving these United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and therefore very important for humanity. With this satellite's information, this is a kind of visualization that we can do. There are 4 different phytoplankton types listed, and you can see that different types of phytoplankton thrive around different parts of the globe. Some of them particularly like the icy waters around Antarctica, for whatever reason. So, to summarize, 200 years ago, we didn't know phytoplankton existed. 150 years ago, a gentleman came up with this, back then, very high technology device, so to say. 60 years ago, we put the first human into outer space. And now we have this satellite that analyzes phytoplankton all the way from space. Many people are worried for humanity's future. There is all these questions around climate change, etc., etc. And this is obviously a big problem. We don't know what the future holds. But for me, when I look at the technological evolution from here to this amazing satellite, I have high hopes for the future. And I think this, coupled with AI, is going to help humanity basically save itself and save Earth. Finally, as a closing thought, I made a lie to you. I told you that phytoplankton can be very dangerous, don't drink it. But in reality, phytoplankton is a superfood not only for whales, but also for humans. They create little gummies of phytoplankton, and they are actually very tasty. Thank you very much.